The manhwa begins with someone pouring tea, the rich scent carrying a hint of cream. The lady pouring the tea for the crown prince is trembling. Before he can take a sip, his cold voice cuts through the air as he asks who prepared this cup. The maid raises her hand. Without hesitation, he drops the teacup. Everyone is shocked. He excuses himself by saying that he was not pleased with the teacup and orders the immediate dismissal of the maid. 1 week earlier, at the Count Manhwa estate, our female protagonist serves tea to her father. He takes a sip and praises her, declaring that she makes tea so delicious he has never tasted anything better in his entire life, and that drinking her tea gives him energy. Since her reincarnation as the youngest daughter of a noble family, she has explored all kinds of teas: black, oolong, herbal. What sustains her in this world is the abundance of tea varieties and the memory of a boy she knew since childhood. She used to serve tea to him and once promised that one day they would open a shop together. When her father asks Erica if she has ever considered becoming a maid in the palace, she reacts with surprise. He tells her that now she has grown up, he will be frank with her. Once her elder sister inherits the estate, Erica will not have much to claim. Working as a palace maid may not seem glamorous, but it could offer much more than staying at home with nothing to do. If she does not mind, she could earn a future for herself. Erica slams her hands on the desk, startling him, and declares that she will do her best. This is one step closer to her dream of opening her own tea house in the capital. Following their conversation, her father secures her a position as a tea servant in the Crown Prince's palace. After completing her probation, she will be able to handle the finest tea leaves. She could not imagine a better opportunity, except she already knows about the Crown Prince's notorious habit of firing his servants on a whim. She has heard of him breaking teacups and dismissing staff again and again. In the present, when the Crown Prince once more breaks a teacup, Erica retreats to her room, sighing as she wonders whether she should just quit while she is safe. Her mood lifts when she sees her diary. This is no ordinary diary, it is a magical exchange diary. Anything she writes and it appears in her friend's diary far away. She writes to her friend that her new job is far tougher than she expected. When her friend asks what kind of job it is, she replies that she works as a tea maid for a very important guest, but that he is a tyrant who does not hesitate to fire his staff, and that his temper is something else entirely. She is suddenly called away. Quickly putting the diary into her drawer, she answers the knock. A maid apologizes for interrupting, explaining that the head maid has summoned her to the storage room and they must hurry. Something feels off. The head maid tells her that, quite unexpectedly, they are ending her probation today, so she will prepare the prince's tea with Libby. Erica finds this sudden, but before she can think too much, the head maid informs her that her salary will be 96 silver coins, which equals 4 gold coins, enough to support a family for 2 months. Erica assures the head maid that she will do her best. She begins preparing tea with Libby. Libby plans to check the teaware and asks Erica to handle the tea leaves. This is Erica's first time serving the Crown Prince, so she selects a bag of leaves that had been a great hit at the last ball, convinced the prince will enjoy it. She is excited to make it perfect. Libby remarks that there should be no problems today, since the prince is in a good mood, and Erica is sure that this time he will adore her tea. That is what she thinks until Libby is abruptly fired right before her eyes. It seems she is next. The prince orders her to bring him another cup. Trembling, she serves him a fresh cup of tea. As he drinks, he asks if she is the new maid he has heard rumors about. Erica confirms that she is in charge of serving his tea. The Crown Prince remarks that the tea is delightful. She is stunned. Does he even know what he is saying? He adds that it has been a long time since he tasted tea like this. Erica cannot believe it. She has just been complimented by him. He returns to his work when his aide approaches, pointing out that if the firing of maids continues, the staff will lose morale. The Crown Prince could not care less. He orders his aide to be quiet and to ensure that they are served tea even in the dungeon. In the dungeon, the dismissed maid sits in the gloom when someone remarks that the place is always so dark. A man approaches Erica, telling her that she did a really great job but that promises should still be kept. She speaks just as he reaches out to grab her. The next day, Erica decides she will just go, serve the prince his tea, and come right back inside. She thinks it will be all right. Someone in the room is trying his best to get the Crown Prince to look at a certain document, but the prince seems more interested in having tea than reading anything. The Crown Prince nods at her, and she carries the tea tray over to him. She is already sweating from the heat in the room, and the tense atmosphere makes it worse. The Crown Prince watches Erica as she prepares the tea, looking pleased, but her hands begin to tremble as she is about to serve it. There is no space on the table, so she apologizes and asks if she should come back later. The Baron nearby is glaring at her so fiercely that it feels like he is trying to kill her with his eyes. The Crown Prince orders the Baron to leave. The Baron is startled, but when the Crown Prince glares at him again, he has no choice but to dash away. Erica hands over the tea, and the Crown Prince asks her to explain it. She begins describing the tea in detail, but it feels more like she is being grilled in an interview than serving a drink. When she feels the conversation is over, she politely asks if she may leave, but the Crown Prince tells her he still has more questions. He asks if they can continue, and it's not as though she has any real choice. Eventually, she is back in her room. Serving tea to him was harder than she expected, but watching her colleagues being dragged out one by one was even more difficult. Later, she sees her dear friend. He asks if she is doing well at the tea house, if anyone is bothering her, and if she is eating properly. She assures him that everything is fine, though it is unsettling to see her colleagues getting kicked out. He then asks her to come work with him instead. She declines, thinking she wouldn't be able to talk as freely with him as she does now, but she thanks him for the offer. Her dear friend tells her that his family runs a major trading company and that he is currently undergoing training to become the heir. Then there is a knock on her door. It is the head maid. The head maid informs her that starting tomorrow, she will serve the prince tea twice as often as before. His schedule will remain the same, but if he feels peckish between lunch and dinner, she will be required to bring tea and refreshment. It is obvious that with her tea duties doubled, her pay will also double. The extra money is enough to make Erica genuinely happy to accept. But once she is working, she wonders what on earth she was thinking when she agreed to it. Serving him was already difficult, and now she also has to answer all of his questions. She had thought he was the quiet type. Later, Erica hears that the prince is calling for her again. She returns to her room after serving him, looking exhausted, but brightens when her friend asks if she is all right and if she has eaten dinner. She admits she hasn't yet. He tells her it seems like she worked very hard today, then asks if there is a specific reason she has to work there. He says if she is uncomfortable, he can recommend her to someone else, because he truly worries about her. She thanks him, but says the pay is rather good, so she will just push herself a bit more. When he asks if there is a reason she is doing all of this, she explains that she is saving money to open a tea house in the capital and that she also needs to meet someone there. She is determined to make sure the Crown Prince loves her tea. She tells her friend that when she opens her tea house, he must be her first customer. The first floor will be for guests to enjoy their tea, while the second floor will be reserved for VIPs. Her friend thinks it sounds great, but asks what exactly VIP means. She tells him it stands for very important people, meaning someone significant. It is a completely new expression for him, and she realizes there is no English in this world. She even considers telling him she is not from here, but then her diary slips from her hands. Pages scatter everywhere, turning the room into a mess. She quickly grabs a bookmark and decides she must never reveal that she is not from this land. But then comes the lingering question in her mind: what country are they in, exactly? The blonde girl carefully unfolds a crumpled note, her fingers trembling slightly as she reads the mysterious message warning her to never reveal to anyone that she is an outlander. Her mind races with questions and concerns as she wonders if this cryptic warning could possibly be from the peculiar shopkeeper she had encountered earlier. The ominous nature of this message sends chills down her spine, and she realizes that she needs to be extremely careful moving forward in this strange new world. She lets out a deep, worried sigh as she glances around the room, searching desperately for the cleaning rags she had been using moments before. Her thoughts drift back to her initial encounter with the mysterious shopkeeper, and she finds herself wiping down the wooden table with deliberate, anxious movements. From the very beginning, something had felt distinctly off about that particular shopkeeper, and now her initial hunch seems to be proving itself correct in the most unsettling way possible. The memory of the man's words echoes in her mind as she recalls him telling her not to worry about anything, insisting that the diary was simply a gift and that she would definitely find it absolutely delightful. At the time, she had felt somehow mysteriously compelled to purchase the strange diary, though she couldn't quite explain the powerful urge that had driven her to make that decision. A vivid flashback suddenly overwhelms her consciousness, transporting her back to that incredible moment when the mysterious book had first begun floating in midair, causing her to jump back in complete startlement and shock. She remembers thinking to herself that the first time the diary had glowed with its own supernatural light, she had been absolutely and completely shocked beyond words. Determined to uncover the truth about the diary's mysterious origins, she had made the decision to return to the location where she had originally purchased. As she approaches the familiar street corner, Her confusion deepens when she discovers that what she clearly remembers being a general store has somehow transformed into a cheerful ice cream shop with bright, colorful signage. The establishment has completely disappeared, as if it had never existed in the first place. When she approaches a friendly worker at the ice cream shop and asks about the previous store, the employee looks at her with genuine confusion and insists that they have only ever sold ice cream at this particular location. The worker's certainty leaves her feeling even more bewildered and questioning her own memories. The realization hits her like a wave. It's as if the mysterious general store had never been there at all. This strange occurrence makes her wonder if the enigmatic shopkeeper might have been an outlander just like herself, possessing some kind of supernatural ability to appear and disappear at will. Feeling overwhelmed by these bizarre discoveries, she plops down heavily on top of her stack of books and lets out another deep, frustrated sigh. She admits to herself that while she had been absolutely frightened at first by the diary's supernatural behavior, she now finds it impossible to imagine her life without her magical diary friend by her side. As if responding to her thoughts, the mysterious book suddenly begins glowing with its familiar ethereal light, causing her to spring backward in surprise. The diary's voice emerges, polite and somewhat hesitant, asking if it wouldn't be too much trouble for her to listen while it confides in her about something that's been weighing on its mind. She responds with enthusiasm and genuine care, telling the diary that of course she would be happy to listen and asking what's currently on its mind. The book explains that it wants to discuss a particular friend of its, though its nervous tone suggests there might be more to this story than meets the eye. She immediately picks up on the obvious hint and responds with amusement, telling the diary that it sure sounds like this conversation is actually about the diary itself, which she finds absolutely adorable and endearing. The diary continues its transparent charade, explaining that this supposed friend has been harboring fond feelings for someone for quite a long time but remains completely unsure about how to properly approach this person. The revelation causes her to freeze in place as the implications sink in. She asks with excitement if the diary is confessing to having a crush, assuring it enthusiastically that it can definitely count on her support and advice. The scene transitions as she finds herself deep in thought, considering the best romantic advice she can offer to her magical friend. She decides that the key to winning someone's heart is to show genuine interest by peppering the object of affection with thoughtful questions and keeping conversations flowing naturally with engaging inquiries. She feels confident that if the diary follows this approach, the other person will surely start developing feelings in return. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, she walks through the corridors while observing a particularly haggard-looking man who appears to have had a difficult day. She silently thanks him for what she considers to be sage advice about pursuing romance, though she reflects that romantic pursuits seem significantly harder than any job she's ever undertaken. Her thoughts are interrupted when a palace worker approaches her with important information. The worker addresses her as Miss Erica and explains that His Highness had experienced a particularly restless night, which means he may be somewhat irritable and difficult to deal with during today's interaction. Erica finds herself wondering what exactly could have troubled the prince so deeply the previous day to cause such obvious distress. Her contemplation is cut short when the prince's voice cuts through the air, asking with clear impatience whether his tea has been properly prepared yet. She responds immediately and respectfully, addressing him as Your Highness and assuring him that his tea will be ready right away. As she carefully pours and presents the steaming cup, she explains that today she has decided to brew black tea with a slightly stronger concentration than usual, having heard about his lack of sleep the previous night. The prince acknowledges her thoughtfulness with a simple response, taking a careful sip of the hot beverage and releasing a long, weary sigh that seems to carry the weight of his troubled thoughts. Erica, ever mindful of royal protocol and the prince's busy schedule, politely suggests that since he must be quite busy with his royal duties, she should take her leave and allow him to continue with his important work without further interruption. However, the prince surprises her by requesting that she stay for a while longer, explaining that he actually has some time available for casual conversation and would appreciate her company. He asks if she could tell him more details about the tea she has prepared for him today. She responds with professional knowledge and enthusiasm, explaining that today's particular tea blend comes from specially selected tea leaves that were harvested along the scenic southeastern river valleys, known for producing some of the finest quality tea in the region. The prince takes another thoughtful sip and comments that there seems to be a subtly different taste to this particular blend compared to his usual tea. Erica brightens at his observation and explains that the unique flavor would be attributed to the cocoa and cinnamon that she carefully added to enhance the tea's natural characteristics. Before she can elaborate further on the tea's preparation, the prince glances at the ornate clock on the wall and explains with obvious regret that while he would genuinely like to continue their pleasant chat, there is unfortunately very little time available in today's packed schedule. He does take a moment to compliment her work, stating that the tea was absolutely excellent. Erica responds gracefully, accepting the dismissal and indicating that she will take her leave as requested, addressing him respectfully as Your Highness. As she begins to exit the room, the prince glances in her direction, and she notices his gaze following her departure. Once outside the prince's chambers, Erica releases a sigh of mixed relief and disappointment, thinking to herself that she had genuinely hoped he might have more questions for her today, as their brief conversation had been quite pleasant despite its abrupt ending. Her thoughts are suddenly interrupted when Mrs. Kesley's familiar voice calls out her name from down the hallway. Erica turns toward the sound with genuine pleasure and greets Mrs. Kesley warmly, expressing her surprise at seeing the head chef in this particular part of the palace. When Erica asks what brings Mrs. Kesley all this way from the kitchens, the head chef explains that she has come specifically to discuss the dinner menu arrangements with Erica for His Highness's upcoming meal. Mrs. Kesley gives Erica an affectionate pat on the shoulder, and Erica reflects internally that Mrs. Kesley serves as the head chef who is entirely responsible for His Highness's meals and desserts, and over time has become her most trusted friend within the palace walls. The sound of clattering dishes echoes through the kitchen as Erica nervously thinks to herself that she's definitely going to receive a thorough earful from Mrs. Kesley if she doesn't speed up her current tasks. She silently urges herself to hurry, knowing that she just needs another moment to complete her work properly. One of the other kitchen workers notices Erica's obvious distress and speaks up in her defense, telling his colleague not to be so harsh on her since she's still relatively new to the palace environment and learning the complex routines. However, another worker responds with less sympathy, cruelly suggesting that Erica is so incredibly slow at her tasks that she'll probably be fired from her position soon enough anyway. The harsh words cause Erica to freeze in place, her heart sinking as the conversation continues around her. The workers continue their gossip, mentioning that it was Libby who got fired before Erica's arrival, and sharing the disturbing information that they heard the prince had dismissed another maid quite recently. The second worker adds ominously that calling it a simple dismissal would be a serious understatement, claiming that she had witnessed the incident with her own eyes just the previous night. Mrs. Kesley's authoritative voice suddenly cuts through the kitchen chatter as she addresses the gossiping workers directly, reminding them that she had requested those specific tea leaves ages ago and demanding to know why the items still haven't arrived at their proper destination. When Mrs. Kesley turns to look at Erica and notices that the young woman is quietly sobbing, her expression immediately softens with maternal concern. She approaches Erica and gently pats her on the shoulder, offering comforting words and assuring her that everything will be all right and that His Highness won't make a big fuss over a slight delay in the tea service. Mrs. Kesley acknowledges that Erica must have been quite frightened by the other workers' harsh comments and gossip. With a warm laugh, she reveals that she had only been teasing Erica earlier about her performance and that she's actually doing a great job overall. Erica opens up about her fears, confessing that whenever she finds herself in front of His Highness, her heart races so frantically that it feels like it's going to burst right out of her chest from the overwhelming anxiety and nervousness. Mrs. Kesley, recognizing that Erica seems particularly stressed today, suggests that they should go together and have some freshly baked pie to help her feel better. Erica responds with genuine enthusiasm, agreeing to the plan and promising that she'll prepare the perfect tea to complement whatever delicious pie Mrs. Kesley has prepared. Erica carefully pours the steaming tea into delicate china cups and presents one to Mrs. Kesley with a warm smile. Mrs. Kesley takes a careful sip of the perfectly brewed tea and compliments Erica sincerely, telling her that there's truly nothing quite like tea prepared by her skillful hands. She encourages Erica to have some tea herself and to let her know if the amount isn't sufficient. Erica takes a bite of the sweet, flaky pie and her face lights up with genuine delight as she exclaims how incredibly good it tastes. Mrs. Kesley warmly encourages her to eat as much as she wants, clearly pleased by Erica's enthusiastic response to her baking. Mrs. Kesley then shifts the conversation, asking casually if Erica has managed to complete all of her assigned tasks for the day. The innocent question causes Erica to freeze in sudden panic as she realizes with horror that she had completely forgotten about the head maid's earlier request. In her distress, Erica accidentally knocks over her teacup, and the hot liquid spills across the wooden table surface. She immediately begins apologizing profusely for the accident, but Mrs. Kesley quickly reassures her that accidents happen and that she'll take care of cleaning up the mess while Erica goes to handle her forgotten responsibilities. When Erica tries to protest and help with the cleanup, Mrs. Kesley insists that she can manage perfectly fine on her own and tells Erica to just make it up to her with another perfectly brewed cup of tea the next time they meet. Erica continues apologizing as she prepares to leave, but takes a moment to genuinely compliment Mrs. Kesley on how fantastic today's pie had been. Mrs. Kesley responds with characteristic warmth, telling Erica not to worry about the minor accident and promising that next time she'll cook something even more delicious for her to enjoy. Erica sprints down the palace corridors while thinking miserably to herself that she's always causing unnecessary trouble for Mrs. Kesley due to her own foolishness and clumsiness. Behind her, Mrs. Kesley efficiently wipes down the table, declaring that everything is now perfectly clean again. As she finishes cleaning, Mrs. Kesley decides that she should wrap up a generous piece of pie for Erica to enjoy later as a small gesture of kindness. While tidying up, she happens to glance at some nearby flowers and wonders to herself when exactly these particular flowers had begun blooming so beautifully and vibrantly. Later that evening, Erica stretches her tired muscles and announces to herself with satisfaction that she's finally finished all her work. She reflects that this wraps up the complex task of sorting through all the different tea leaves, organizing them by type and quality. Since she has some precious free time before the next scheduled tea service, she decides that maybe she'll dive into reading the novel she's been eagerly anticipating. Her mind drifts back to her time before entering the royal palace, when she had lived at Count Manel's estate. She vividly remembers her sister dramatically banging her fist on the table and yelling with excitement about a popular story, declaring that she absolutely must know more about this tale of a woman who contract married the wealthiest, terminally ill duke, but somehow the emperor won't stop obsessing over her. Her sister had proclaimed it was definitely the talk of the town that year. Erica had responded calmly to her sister's enthusiasm, and her sister had immediately demanded that Erica lend her the copy so she could start reading the intriguing story right away. Now, in the quiet of her palace room, Erica locates the book and carefully removes the accumulated dust from its worn cover. She reads the title aloud and reflects that this particular title hardly seems appropriate for the refined atmosphere of the royal palace. Contract married the wealthiest terminally ill duke, but the emperor won't stop obsessing over her. According to the story's premise, as a young boy, the future emperor had met the female lead completely by chance during a brief encounter. This meeting had caused him to fall hopelessly and deeply in love at first sight, a love so powerful that it would shape his entire future. Fueled by this overwhelming love and devotion, he had not only awakened to his true magical powers but had also systematically eliminated all of his political enemies and rivals. Through cunning and determination, he had claimed the imperial throne for himself, earning the infamous and feared title of the bloodthirsty tyrant throughout the land. Years later, when fate brought them together again, the female lead had desperately pleaded with him to stay away from her, not recognizing the blood-covered emperor as the same innocent boy she had once briefly encountered. Erica's reading is interrupted when a young boy knocks at her door, addressing her respectfully as Miss Erica. He explains urgently that His Highness has finished his meal earlier than usual today and that she needs to prepare his tea immediately to maintain the proper schedule. Erica recognizes the boy as Archie and asks him curiously what had been on the menu for His Highness today. Archie provides a detailed report, explaining that His Highness had enjoyed a sophisticated meal consisting of fresh asparagus paired with perfectly baked fish fillet, followed by a succulent beef tenderloin steak prepared to perfection. For dessert, the kitchen had planned a freshly baked chocolate cake that was still warm from the oven. With this information, Erica confidently declares that the menu settles her tea selection decision, and she promises Archie that she'll have the perfect complimentary tea ready in no time at all. A short while later, Erica enters the prince's chambers carrying a carefully prepared tea service. She apologizes sincerely for any wait His Highness may have experienced and presents today's specially selected tea with professional pride. The prince stares thoughtfully at the steaming cup before beginning to ask about the tea's specific name. Erica, anticipating his question, thinks to herself that she'll get ahead of his inquiries this time and provide comprehensive information before he even asks for it. When the prince requests that she please tell him about the tea, Erica begins to respond that it's called Moroccan mint tea, but freezes mid-sentence as she suddenly realizes that Morocco doesn't exist in this particular world. Thinking quickly, she corrects herself and explains that it's actually Moro mint tea, hoping her improvisation sounds believable. The prince repeats the name questioningly, and Erica confirms her made-up designation, explaining that she had received some particularly unique mint leaves in the tea storage area and had decided to create this creative name for the blend. The prince seems to accept this explanation with a simple acknowledgement. Erica continues her detailed explanation, noting that the mint has a pretty strong flavor profile that can easily overshadow the more delicate tea base, but that she has used specially roasted leaves to carefully balance out the strong mint flavor and create a harmonious blend. The prince compliments her approach, calling it a clever solution to a potentially problematic flavor combination. Erica beams with pride and begins to explain that there's another way to handle such strong flavoring, but then catches herself and politely indicates that she should take her lead now, thinking to herself that she had better hurry along before she says something inappropriate. However, as she begins to exit, the prince suddenly calls out Miss Erica and gently grabs her arm, nervously asking what her thoughts might be on the Empire's current taxation policies. The unexpected question leaves Erica completely bewildered, and she asks for clarification about what exactly he wants from her. The prince continues with increasingly strange requests, telling her to list 5 specific pros and cons of their current tax system. When Erica looks confused, he presents her with an even more bizarre hypothetical scenario, asking if she were a coachman who had to choose between saving people tied to a bridge or passengers in a sinking carriage, whom would she save first? Erica responds thoughtfully that she would first try to avoid the crash entirely, then rescue the passengers who had fallen into the water. When the prince presses further, asking what she would do if she couldn't save them after they had already fallen in, Erica responds with determination that even if the situation seemed impossible, she would definitely find a way to save everyone. She thinks to herself that he really should have just asked her about tea instead, since that's clearly her area of expertise. But then again, she finds herself admiring how he manages to enjoy his daily tea and desserts while maintaining such a sharp, defined jawline. Later, sitting alone on the floor of her room, Erica tries to forget about the prince's strange questions and decides to just finish reading her engaging book. She returns to the story where the tyrant emperor has decided to propose marriage to the female lead, but the clever female lead foresees his romantic plan and decides to take drastic action to escape it. To avoid the emperor's unwanted proposal, she seeks out a wealthy, terminally ill duke and boldly proposes a contract marriage arrangement to him instead. The duke, who has secretly loved her for many years while watching from afar, eagerly agrees to her unexpected proposal without hesitation. As Erica continues reading, she thinks to herself that the story is definitely getting more interesting and complex, but she finds herself wondering who the real male lead actually is in this complicated romantic triangle. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, the prince calls out to Derek, his trusted butler. Derek responds immediately and respectfully, asking if he has made some mistakes in the financial accounts that require correction. The prince reassures Derek that his calculations are absolutely impeccable and without error. Derek thanks him for the compliment, and the prince explains that he actually has a question for Derek to answer. Derek fidgets nervously and gulps before responding that he's ready to assist with whatever His Highness would like to know. The prince then asks the question that has been weighing on his mind: how does one excel at the complicated art of romance? Derek freezes in complete shock and asks for clarification, clearly not having expected such a personal inquiry from his normally reserved master. Derek stares at the prince with complete bewilderment, his mouth slightly agape as he processes the unexpected question that has just been posed to him. He stammers out a confused "Pardon me, Your Highness," while trying to maintain his professional composure despite the shocking nature of the inquiry. The prince shifts uncomfortably in his ornate chair, clearly struggling with how to phrase his request properly. He explains with obvious embarrassment that a friend of his has been seeking advice recently, and this friend wants to know how exactly one excels at the complicated and mysterious art of romance. His voice carries a note of desperation that Derek has never heard before from his usually composed master. Derek repeats the word romance, with clear confusion coloring his tone, his eyebrows raised in surprise as he tries to understand why His Highness would suddenly be asking about such personal matters. The butler's mind races with possibilities, wondering what could have prompted this unusual conversation. The prince continues his explanation, his voice becoming more strained as he delves deeper into the supposed friend's romantic troubles. He reveals that this friend had initially thought that spending more quality time with the object of his affection would naturally bring them closer together and strengthen their bond. However, instead of achieving the desired result, this strategy has somehow made them feel more distant and awkward around each other than before. As Derek listens to these details, a sudden realization dawns on him: the prince isn't talking about a friend at all. The butler's eyes widen slightly as he understands that his master is actually describing his own romantic situation, though he's too embarrassed to admit it directly. This revelation explains so many recent behavioral changes that Derek had noticed but hadn't been able to understand. The prince continues his confession, explaining with growing frustration that their conversations have begun to lack any real spark or genuine connection, making the entire situation rather challenging and emotionally draining. His usually confident demeanor has been replaced by uncertainty and self-doubt. Derek thinks to himself with growing understanding that this romantic struggle must be why the prince has been so particularly demanding and difficult lately. The butler recalls with sudden clarity how the prince has been constantly calling for him at the most inappropriate times, when Derek is busy with important work, when he's delivering items throughout the palace, and even during the precious few hours when he's trying to sleep. The pattern now makes perfect sense. A wave of concern washes over Derek as he thinks to himself that at this relentless pace, with the prince's increasing demands and erratic behavior, he'll probably be the first staff member to completely collapse from exhaustion. The realization is both worrying and slightly amusing. When the prince notices Derek's prolonged silence and questions whether his butler is still listening, Derek quickly recovers his composure and offers what he hopes will be helpful advice. He suggests thoughtfully that perhaps this friend could try highlighting his natural strengths and positive qualities to the person he admires, rather than trying to be someone he's not. The prince looks genuinely puzzled by this suggestion and asks with obvious confusion what exactly Derek means by his strengths. The concept seems foreign to him, as if he's never considered what his own positive attributes might be. Derek, warming to his role as romantic advisor despite his initial shock, explains that, for instance, if it were him in this situation, he would focus on showcasing his most appealing characteristics and talents. The prince leans forward with obvious interest, saying that this sounds quite intriguing and he'd like to hear more about this approach. Their private consultation is suddenly interrupted by Erica's familiar voice as she knocks politely on the door and announces that she has brought some freshly prepared tea and snacks for His Highness. When she enters the room and catches sight of the prince, she's immediately struck by his overwhelming presence and thinks to herself that he's absolutely blinding in his handsomeness. Derek's first piece of dating advice echoes in the prince's mind. He should highlight his natural charm and appeal to capture her attention. The prince asks with surprise if she's really here, as if he hadn't been expecting her arrival despite having requested the tea service. An awkward silence fills the room as both the prince and Erica seem unsure how to proceed. Then the prince suddenly remembers Derek's second piece of dating advice, which was to maintain a mysterious air by keeping quiet around her and letting his presence speak for itself. The prince stands up from his chair with deliberate grace, and Erica begins her usual professional explanation about the day's tea selection. She explains that today's tea comes from the very first harvest of the most tender leaves found at the top of the tea bushes in the central Western Kingdom, known for producing the finest quality tea in the region. As he sits back down, Erica finds herself thinking that he really is ridiculously handsome in a way that's almost unfair to other people. The thought causes her to momentarily lose her professional composure as she struggles to maintain her focus on the tea presentation. She continues her explanation with slightly less steadiness in her voice, describing how the highland tea fields are often shrouded in mysterious mist that enriches the flavor profile of the leaves in unique ways. She notes that the tea's natural lightness complements the accompanying desserts perfectly, creating a harmonious dining experience. Throughout her entire detailed presentation, the prince only responds with simple nods while quietly sipping his tea, offering none of his usual questions or engaging commentary. This sudden change in his behavior leaves Erica completely baffled and increasingly nervous. Erica thinks to herself with growing confusion why he has suddenly stopped talking entirely. She wonders if today has been designated as some kind of day of silence that she wasn't informed about. The dramatic shift from his previous chattiness to this mysterious quiet is something she's barely coping with, and the tension in the room feels almost unbearable. Unable to handle the uncomfortable silence any longer, Erica nervously picks up the serving tray and rushes toward the door, announcing with obvious flustered energy that she'll take her lead now. Her hasty retreat causes the prince to flinch slightly, clearly not having expected such an abrupt departure. As soon as Erica is safely out of earshot, Derek peeks his head back into the room and asks eagerly whether his first piece of advice worked as intended. However, his enthusiasm is quickly met with the prince's obvious displeasure, and Derek lets out a big ouch as he realizes his suggestion may not have had the desired effect. The next time Erica enters the prince's chambers for the regular tea service, she announces her arrival with her usual professional courtesy, explaining that she's serving the tea now and beginning to describe what she has brought for today's selection. However, her words are cut short by a dramatic gasp that escapes her lips involuntarily. She thinks to herself with complete shock why the prince is suddenly dressed in the distinctive, colorful attire of the Southern Kingdom, which is quite different from his usual formal palace wear. The unexpected costume change catches her completely off guard and leaves her struggling to maintain her professional demeanor. Derek's third piece of dating advice echoes in the prince's mind. He had suggested that the prince should strip down his formal barriers and show more of his true self to her. However, it seems the prince may have misinterpreted this advice in a more literal way than Derek had intended. Erica finds herself involuntarily counting under her breath as she tries to distract herself from the prince's unusual appearance, thinking 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces of chocolate, as if the mental exercise might help her regain her composure. Despite her best efforts, she can't help but notice how the exotic clothing suits him remarkably well. She begins drooling slightly without realizing it and nervously attempts to continue with her tea presentation, stammering that today's tea is infused with tart cranberries that provide a delightful contrast to the base flavors. The prince, noticing her obvious distress and pale complexion, asks with genuine concern whether she's feeling all right. His worry seems sincere, though he appears unaware that his unusual clothing choice is the source of her discomfort. At that moment, part of the prince's loose-fitting Southern Kingdom clothing shifts or drops slightly, causing Erica to let out a startled "oh dear." She quickly encourages him to please enjoy his tea while she makes another hasty dash from the room, her face burning with embarrassment. As she flees down the hallway, the prince calls out after her with obvious confusion, saying, "Miss Erica." But she's already too far away and too flustered to respond appropriately. Once safely alone in her quarters, Erica tries to process what has just happened, thinking to herself that she can't believe she just ran out like that again. She begins to wonder with growing paranoia if these strange encounters are their way of tormenting her deliberately, or if the prince might be trying to create reasons to fire her from her position. An even more troubling thought occurs to her: could he have somehow figured out that she obtained this prestigious job through his father's connections rather than through her own merit? The possibility fills her with dread as she considers the implication. Erica gulps nervously as she contemplates the worst-case scenario, wondering if she's going to end up being dismissed like all the rest of the servants who have mysteriously disappeared from the palace. The thought causes her to tremble with fear and anxiety. In her distressed state, she reaches for her magical diary friend, hoping to find some comfort and advice. However, in her nervous fumbling, she accidentally drops a container of ink, watching in horror as the black liquid spills across the diary's pages. She immediately writes an apology, explaining that she's sorry for spilling ink all over the diary and asking if she can seek advice about something that's been troubling her. She notices that the diary's response seems unusually delayed today, which only adds to her anxiety and worry. Eventually, she drifts off to sleep while waiting, only to be awakened later by the familiar glow of the magical book. The diary's voice carries a tone of sincere apology as it explains that it's sorry for the delayed response. It reveals that it has been tied up with various matters and has only just now managed to open the diary to communicate with her. The diary expresses that while it pains the magical book to hear that she's troubled, it also means a great deal that she relies on their friendship during difficult times. The diary continues its heartfelt response, admitting with obvious regret that it's truly sorry for not being more helpful in her time of need. The genuine care in the diary's words touches Erica deeply. She thinks to herself with growing emotion that her magical friend actually stayed up late just to reply to her message and provide the support she desperately needed. This realization fills her with warmth and gratitude. Erica writes back to thank the diary for making her feel so much better, adding a small heart symbol to show her appreciation. She explains that the diary's kind words have really brightened her entire day and given her the strength to continue. With renewed determination, Erica thinks to herself that she's no longer scared of the Crown Prince or his strange behavior. She's absolutely determined to succeed in this job that pays an impressive 100 gold coins per year, no matter what challenges she might face. The next morning, Erica encounters Derek in the hallway and asks with concern whether he's feeling alright, as he appears particularly exhausted and worn down. Derek explains wearily that His Highness has finally fallen asleep after being awake all night, which explains his own tired appearance. When Erica expresses surprise at this information, Derek elaborates that the prince has been completely buried under work recently and hasn't been sleeping well at all. He suggests that she can simply leave the tea service in the prince's room today rather than waking him for the usual presentation. Erica carefully places the tray on the side table, moving as quietly as possible to avoid disturbing the sleeping prince. As she sets everything down, she notices that the prince shifts slightly in his sleep, his body rustling against the bed sheets. She observes that if he continues sleeping with his arm positioned in such an awkward angle, he'll definitely wake up feeling sore and uncomfortable. Although she tells herself that it doesn't really matter to her, she can't help but feel concerned about his comfort. Against her better judgment, Erica decides she'll just adjust his head position slightly to prevent him from developing a painful crick in his neck. As she gently moves to help him, the sleeping prince nuzzles closer and murmurs her name Erica in his half-asleep state. The unexpected sound of her name spoken so intimately causes Erica to become extremely flustered, and she lets out a shocked huh as she realizes the implications of what just happened. Erica's mind races frantically as she processes what just happened with the sleeping prince. She thinks to herself with growing panic that she has absolutely no idea what she just did or why she did it. The reality of the situation hits her like a cold wave, and she finds herself panicking internally while trying to maintain some semblance of composure on the outside. She remembers with crystal clarity the feeling of him nuzzling against her hand, the warmth of his skin, and the intimate way he had murmured her name while lost in his dreams. The memory sends shivers down her spine as she desperately tries to understand what any of this could possibly mean for her future at the palace. The question that torments her most is why he would murmur her name in his sleep. Was it just a coincidence, or does it mean something deeper and more significant? The uncertainty gnaws at her as she contemplates all the possible explanations, most of them terrifying. Her worst fears begin to surface as she thinks to herself with mounting dread that she might be getting fired for this inappropriate incident. The thought of losing her precious job fills her with terror, especially considering how hard she worked to get this position in the first place. A sudden knock at the door causes Erica to flinch violently, her heart jumping into her throat as she immediately assumes the worst. She thinks with absolute panic that this must be her termination notice arriving faster than she ever could have imagined possible. With trembling hands and a voice full of anxiety, Erica opens the door and immediately blurts out her fears to the person standing there, asking Archie directly if she's being fired from her position. Her voice shakes with emotion as she waits for what she assumes will be devastating news. Archie looks completely confused by her panicked question, responding with genuine bewilderment as he asks what she means by being fired and what could have possibly happened to make her think such a thing. His confused reaction provides Erica with a small measure of relief. She sighs deeply with temporary relief and asks for confirmation that she's not actually being terminated from her position. Then her curiosity gets the better of her, and she asks why the prince decided to skip his usual tea time today, which is highly unusual for his normally rigid schedule. Archie provides an explanation that both reassures and concerns Erica. He explains with a matter-of-fact tone that the prince usually fires people immediately on the spot when he's displeased with their performance, so the fact that she's still safely in her room means she's probably not in any immediate danger of termination. This information brings Erica some comfort, though she files away the concerning detail about how quickly the prince apparently dismisses staff members who displease him. Archie then shifts to explaining the current situation, informing her that His Highness is presently having his dinner. Erica expresses surprise at this information, noting that dinner is happening much earlier than usual according to the prince's typical schedule. Her mind immediately connects this change to what Derek had told her earlier about the prince being awake all night, and she thinks to herself that maybe he'll finally be able to go to bed early tonight and get some much-needed rest. Archie leans in closer and whispers conspiratorially that the dinner has been interrupted, or rather graced, by the unexpected presence of the Empress herself. This revelation hits Erica like a thunderbolt, and she responds with startled shock, asking for confirmation that the Empress is really there right now. Archie sighs and confirms that yes, the Empress insisted on having tea today, which has sent the entire kitchen staff into a complete frenzy of preparation. Everyone is scrambling to ensure that everything meets the incredibly high standards expected when serving royalty of such importance. The news sends Erica into a state of shocked panic as she processes what this means for her. She thinks to herself with growing alarm that the Empress has specifically singled her out for this tea service, which could be either an incredible honor or a terrifying test that could determine her future at the palace.